How did you learn your book was a hit, and then that Spielberg wanted to put it on screen?
Well, it was, it was a strange process. I started out as a screenwriter, and I actually had a movie produced back in 2009, but that was a long period. It took about 10 years for the movie to get made, and then during the process of getting made, it got changed heavily, and the characters and the story got altered in ways that didn't make me happy, and that made me question whether or not I wanted to be a screenwriter after all. I'd always thought I wanted to do that, but then when I saw that you lose control of your story and your characters, you're powerless to do anything about it, and that made me want to try writing fiction to see what would happen if I could, communicate directly with my audience and geek out to the reader without any filter of trying to get a movie made, and it was my first novel, so they tell you to write what you know and write the kind of story that you'd have always wanted to read. So I drew upon all the movies and books and stories that influenced me growing up, and that became Ready Player One. But the whole time that I was working on it, I assumed it could never be a movie, because of all the pop culture references that I wanted to mash up and pay tribute to all the different facets of pop culture that I love. And I knew enough about making films to know that the licensing for all these different elements would be cost prohibitive and probably impossible. And I think it would have remained impossible if it had found its way to anyone else. Any other filmmaker wouldn't have been able to pull it off. But because he has so much goodwill because of his back catalog, everyone was excited to have their IP and their products included in the film. He's also just a uniquely brilliant visual filmmaker and has an amazing track record with book-to-film adaptations. So, it's still stunning to me. It's been 3 years since he signed on and we started working on this movie together, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. It's just the best thing that could ever happen to any novelist.
And how did you learn that it was not any director? It was Steven Spielberg.
Well, they told me first that he was interested, and then that was about a 2-week period while he decided. He read the script and he read the book, and then initially they told me, and that was the first time I ever even considered it as a possibility. They had me make a wish list of directors before then, but I didn't put him on it because that seemed like hubris. He picks you. You don't pick him, and so I never thought to pick him or try to go after him. And I'm so grateful that somehow Warner Brothers took the script to him, and he responded wonderfully to it. But that was the longest 2 weeks of my life. I assumed that every day that would pass, I was more certain that he would not do it, and I would be haunted by what might have been for the whole rest of my life. But he, thankfully, I don't have to live with that anguish because he said yes, and he made, I think, the best possible film adaptation of my novel.
And for your future, what are your projects? Do you want to maybe have a sequel of this fantastic world of the Oasis, or explore new worlds?
Well, I'm
fiction, or movie, or books. What?
Both. Well, I would love to make a sequel to Ready Player One. I'm working on a novel sequel. There's a sequel to my novel, but I'm hoping that will also serve as the basis for a great film adaptation if they decide to make a sequel to Ready Player One. I've been thinking a lot about Michael Crichton after Jurassic Park. He only ever wrote one sequel, and it was The Lost World, and that was because he could tell there was going to be a movie, and there have been three or four other films. So he wanted to maintain control of his story and his characters and please fans of his book. That was what I wanted to do too. So I've been working on a sequel to Ready Player One right up until I came to promote the movie. And I would be excited to. Steven said this is one of the hardest films he's ever made, in the top 3 after Jaws and Saving Private Ryan. So I don't know if he would be ready to jump on and sign on for a sequel, but I would hope so. So fingers crossed.
What do you know about the French pop culture, especially on comics?
So much of it came from heavy metal. First, I saw the film, and that made me seek out the magazine, and that exposed me to Mobius and to Valerian. And I am a huge fan of French comic books and French science fiction. I love Luc Besson, and I loved Fifth Element, and I loved Valerian, and I love the French influence on Blade Runner. All comes from Mobius and heavy metal. That idea of a vertical cityscape, which inspired Blade Runner, which in turn inspired me. The stacked trailers in Ready Player One is my idea of like white trash Blade Runner trailer park. yes, I'm very aware of the influence of French science fiction, and I'm a big fan.